Hi everyone, Dr. Bartholomew here. This is kind of bizarre, but it's week 3 of our course, and that's technically like the midterm. So, congratulations on making it through the first half of this course successfully. I've really been enjoying reading your discussion posts so far and watching you develop your sociological imaginations while we unpack these complex social problems and begin to generate some thoughtful solutions of strategies and behaviors that we as individuals can adopt to address some of these inequalities and make the world a better place for everyone. So, this week we are going to be discussing social problems pertaining to race and racism. We're going to address this concept of white privilege, and we are also going to look at social problems pertaining to the criminal justice system in the United States. Specifically, we'll take a closer look at police brutality and also the prison industrial complex as well. So really interesting content this week. I really hope that you're going to approach this content with an open mind. Again, something I'll tell you and continue to tell you throughout this course is that whenever we're discussing social problems from a sociological perspective, it's important that we are willing to lean into the discomfort that many of these topics may make us feel. It may not be comfortable for you to talk about issues like racism, especially in our current social and political climate, where this is definitely a topic that's getting an increasing amount of attention, and it is very polemic in many instances. I'm sure many of you have had some uncomfortable conversations already with people who have very different views than you, and maybe some of the content that I'm presenting to you this week and some of the research and the statistics that I present to you this week are going to make you feel uncomfortable and go against a belief system or a value system that you've been indoctrinated into. And that's okay, but I'm just encouraging you to lean into this discomfort, to approach the content that we're going to be going through this week with an open mind, and to really try and examine it sociologically, right? That's the whole point of this course. This is a sociology course. I'm not grading you or evaluating you on your beliefs or your belief systems. I am grading you on your ability to apply sociological concepts, terminology, and science to address these social problems that we're covering. All right, so if we go into the week 3 course content folder, you will see that there are 2 modules we're covering this week. The first one is content on white privilege and racism. First, we just have a brief video here. It's only a 4-minute video, and this is a resource that I share very widely with people that come to me and say, hey, I really don't understand how racism is still a problem affecting people today. I thought this was something that we solved with the civil rights movement in the 50s and the 60s. This is a 4-minute video that does a really great job explaining this complex concept of systemic racism. So introducing it as the first piece of content for this week, just to really introduce all of us to the realities of racism today and what racism looks like here in the 21st century. This next link is just the chapter for the textbook on racial and ethnic inequality, so lots of good information and statistics from that reading. This is a reading that I think is another really helpful piece for white people in particular to better understand the complexities of this concept of white privilege and what it means. So the piece is titled, What I Told My White Friend When He Asked for My Black Opinion on White Privilege. And this is just the perspective from a person of color to explain to a white person how people who are white walk through the world differently than people who are racial or ethnic minorities. This next link here is a video. It's a talk given by sociologist Dr. Robin DiAngelo. Dr. Robin DiAngelo also wrote a book on racism, specifically called White Fragility. It's an excellent book. I didn't assign any of it because I assigned a talk from Robin DiAngelo, and the content she covers in this talk addresses many of the themes from the book. But if you're someone who's really interested in better understanding racism, especially in a modern day context with what's happening in our society, I would definitely recommend her book, White Fragility. I have a long list of books that I would recommend on any of the topics we're covering. So if you're ever in a position where you're really interested in a topic, you'd like more suggestions for books or documentaries or other pieces of content, please reach out to me. I'm happy to share all those with you. Next, I have a TED Talk here from an individual named Verna Myers, and she offers some really helpful suggestions about how we as a society society can work to overcome our biases to help reduce issues of inequality. And then, of course, my video lectures for this week and the slides as well. Right. The other module, really quickly, is dealing more with issues pertaining to police brutality in the prison industrial complex. So these are issues that are definitely heavily influenced by race, as I'll talk about in my video lectures for this week. But before the video lectures, several different pieces of content this week. There's no reading from the textbook that I'm assigning for this particular module, so I hope you'll enjoy the diversity in terms of the different modes of media and content that we're using here. This first is just a short reading, why the Texas police stop video is a problem. So an issue pertaining to educating high school students in the state of Texas about how to interact with police. I thought that would be an interesting opening piece for this week. The next piece is a short article that says, after Ferguson, black men still face the highest risk of being killed by police. I then included a more current piece on looting. With the current protests that have been taking place across the world after the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis, a lot of people, I've seen a lot of interesting dialogues, especially on social media and in various media outlets, about why these peaceful protests couldn't just be that, peaceful protests. Why do people need to resort to looting in these protests? Doesn't it just make the image of these protesters, who are predominantly people of color, even worse in the eyes of the media? And I've read a lot of really thoughtful and insightful counter arguments to that, and justifying why this looting is taking place and why looting in itself can be a form of protest for individuals for whom peaceful protests haven't been enough. Look at what happened when Colin Kaepernick took a knee in the NFL. The most peaceful form of a protest an individual could do, and look at all of the negative societal backlash that he got. Ended up losing his job in the NFL. So sometimes peaceful protest isn't enough. Sometimes people respond in more physical and even violent ways, and it's an interesting discussion to think about how the power that looting and disrupting physical spaces and destroying physical property as a symbol of standing up against capitalism, of a symbol of standing up against the violence that brown and black bodies have endured for centuries in the United States. So, an interesting piece, none the least. Next, a reading here, Masked Racism, Reflections on the Prison Industrial Complex. This is an article, or just a reading by Angela Davis, who is one of the leading scholars addressing this discussion of the prison industrial complex and the need to potentially abolish the prison system that we currently have in the United States. Then we have Taking Freedom, Modern Day Slavery in America's Prison Workforce. This is just a reading that kind of builds off these claims made by Davis in the previous reading here, showing how the current prison system that we have in the U.S. is potentially just an extension of slavery that we saw several hundred years ago. So a lot of information, a lot of interesting statistics in this particular piece. And then the main piece of content within this module, I'm asking you to watch a feature-length documentary. So it is a little bit long. It's about an hour and 40 minutes. But the documentary is 13th, and it is a brilliant documentary. It's also available on Netflix if you'd rather stream it on that, if that's available, but it is completely available for free to stream on YouTube, which is the link I have included here. And essentially, 13th is a feature-length documentary by director Ava DuVernay, and it connects these issues of racism, the prison industrial complex, and the modern day slavery of prison labor today in a really beautiful way. It's a really wonderful documentary. This is another piece of content I frequently recommend to friends and family members who reach out to me saying that they want to learn more about racism in society today, but they don't know where to start. I think this is an excellent documentary to do that. And then the last reading, a really brief two-page document I provided here. And this comes from an organization that I believe is grounded in Minneapolis about working to defund the police in response to George Floyd's death. Not only defund, but to abolish eventually. So this language of abolishing prisons and abolishing police might sound really foreign to you right now, but we're going to explore it a lot more on the content, and I definitely go into it much more detail in my weekly lecture videos, and then of course the slides provided here as well. So pretty straightforward in terms of content this week. The one thing you will notice in the course content folder for week 3 that is different is I'm asking you to please complete a mid-course evaluation. So this is essentially just 5 open-ended questions. I'm just asking for your feedback on how the course is going so far. I want to know what you're liking about the course. I want to know what you're not liking about the course. I want to know what I can do to make this course more enjoyable and interesting to you. I want to know what I can do to help you learn more from this course. And in general, any commentary you have for me, I'm not going to be offended. All of your responses are anonymous, so I don't see who wrote what. So please speak openly, speak honestly. I love teaching sociology. This is my favorite part of my day. Every day is getting to having the privilege to share the knowledge that I have with other people, especially in courses like this one, which is designed at reducing social problems in our society. It's, an opportunity to feel like we all can be part of something so much bigger than ourselves and create a better community for us, to create greater equality for the people living not only here in Corpus, but throughout the state of Texas, even in the United States, around the world. I feel there's so much power in sociology. And so I want to make sure that I'm doing my best job in sharing my passion with sociology with you and sharing my education of sociology with you. So please take a few minutes and fill out this course evaluation. Like I said, it's anonymous, so I won't know who said what. You can speak honestly. I really will take all of the information that you provide to me and make adjustments in the second half of the semester as needed, as much as I can, to address any concerns or questions that you raise in this course evaluation. So please complete this evaluation. You've got the modules 5 and 6. And then the only other thing that's a little different this week for your weekly discussion post, the first 2 weeks, just to kind of get you up to speed in the course, I've been asking you some very specific questions that I'd like you to respond to. But as we're advancing in this course, I expect that you're also starting to advance in your abilities to form your own arguments and develop your critical thinking skills. So instead of asking you specific questions in the prompt for the week 3 discussion, I'm kind of giving you open terrain. Instead of asking those specific questions, I'd like you to have free reign to discuss, analyze, and critique this week's content in a more open fashion. So my only requirements here, you still need to cover the 5 C's, right? So you still need a minimum of 200 words. You still need to have 2 distinct citations from the weekly content in your post. You still need to pose 2 questions. You still need to write clearly. You still need to really analyze and address the assigned content for this week. But the specific ideas or concepts or theories that you want to analyze or critique or elaborate on in your discussion post, that's up to you. So I'm giving you a little more freedom. Some people will enjoy this. Some people may be a little concerned and they like being told exactly what to do. If you have any questions or want ideas about what to talk about in your discussion post, I definitely give several hints of things that I'd like you to discuss in my lecture videos. For instance, this idea of abolishing the police and abolishing prison systems, I think, is a really interesting and timely topic. We, of course, have a lot going on in our society with the Black Lives Matter movement right now. Really a lot of great opportunities for you to incorporate current events into this discussion. Just be sure you're analyzing the weekly content in your discussion post in some fashion, and I think you'll be okay. So I'm really looking forward to reading your discussion post this week now that you have a little more freedom to discuss things more openly. And as always, please feel free to contact me with any questions or concerns. I hope you are all staying safe and being responsible out there during this frightening time. Stay well. I will talk to you soon.